What do you call a band that only plays during the spring? The Vapors, because as soon as things heat up, they evaporate. 1980, a spiky, unforgettable guitar riff slices through the airwaves, a song about obsession and angst, delivered with a full-on new wave sneer. While some thought the song was about something more lewd, while others thought it was meant to be a hateful tirade against a particular group. Turning Japanese by the Vapors was a top 5 hit in the UK, it topped the charts in Australia, and even cracked the US top 40. Suddenly, the Vapors were on top of the pops, touring the world, looking like the next big thing. And then, within a few short years, complete silence. So what happened? How does a band that iconic, that's suddenly successful, just disappear off the face of the earth? And maybe more incredibly, how did they find their way back after more than 3 decades apart? In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive on the story of the Vapors, from turning Japanese to a total vanishing act and then their unexpected return. Our story doesn't kick off in Japan, of all places, but in Guildford, Surrey, England, way back to the end of 1978. The dust from the punk explosion was still settling and new wave was bubbling up. This was a pretty fertile ground where the Vapors started to take shape. The core lineup was made up of David Fenton on lead vocals and rhythm guitar, Edward Bazalgette on lead guitar, Steve Smith on bass, and Howard Smith, no relation to Steve by the way, on drums. Prior to the musicians getting together, Fenton played in an earlier version of what turned into the Vapors, who were then going by the name BBC Three. He told Right Wyatt UK, "Our lineup was falling apart and I was looking for people while other bands were also falling apart, cherry-picking a new lineup. I felt Ed looked cool on lead guitar and had that sort of style I wanted, while Steve was actually drumming in a band called The Absolute, but I knew he played bass and was really solid." Now, there were different reports coming out of 1980, depending on what you read. Some claim that Fenton had already graduated law school and was already working as a solicitor for around a year, while others claimed he had spent 5 years trying to pass his law exams and was planning to take time off of school to see where his music career went. The band cited groups like the Beatles, Disco, Talking Heads, and Devo as some of their early influences. They hammered out their sound in local pubs, mixing power pop energy with smart and sharp lyrics. But some of these early gigs were a little rough, as the Vapors were playing to basically 2 men and a dog. Then came one of those fateful nights playing at the Three Lines pub in Farncombe. Who was in the audience that night? Bruce Foxton, bassist for The Jam, one of the UK's biggest bands at the time. He offered the Vapors 2 gigs on the Jam's tour in massive venues. They were third on the bill and even got an encore. And soon enough, Bruce Foxton and John Feller, who was the father of singer Paul Weller and the manager of the Jam, offered to also manage the Vapors and get them a record deal. Talk about timing. Suddenly, the Vapors were catapulted from pub stages straight into a major tour, supporting the Jam on their 1979 Setting Suns tour. That kind of exposure, as you can imagine, was pretty priceless. It was a real crash course in life on the road and playing to huge crowds. It was the kind of break most new bands could obviously only dream of. They soon signed with United Artists and the stage was set. Fun fact you guys may not know is that originally the Vapors' name was spelt with the U, so they Americanized it, taking the U out, hoping to appeal to an American audience across the pond. The band in their early days, because of their connections, were frequently compared to the Jam, while others claimed they were new wave, something the members actually hated. Fenton's lyrical themes touched upon alienation in British society and the troubled lives of British youth. Even with a high-profile tour and top-notch management, their first single, titled Prisoners, which dropped in late 1979, didn't really make a dent in the charts. It was a decent track showcasing their potential, but it just didn't have that magic spark that makes a song a phenomenon. The band enlisted producer Vic Coppersmith-Heaven, who was known for his work with the Jam, to record their major label debut titled Nuclear Days in 1980. Turning Japanese was unleashed as the first single, and it was absolutely electric. That instantly recognizable guitar riff from Bazalgette, Fenton's urgent vocals, and that driving rhythm, it was a song you just couldn't ignore. It was catchy, quirky. The lyrics, though, well, they immediately sparked a huge debate and a rumor that still follows the song today. Lines like this one. This line had tons of people convinced it was a cheeky euphemism for, well, as Sal Governale says, tossing one off.
But most people hold firm to a third premise. Turning Japanese is about
I remember hearing the rumor that Turning Japanese was about masturbation.
Turning Japanese is right up there with I Touch Myself.
When you, supposedly your eyes squint a bit and you look Japanese.
Fenton told Goldmine magazine, "We were surprised to find out that some thought Turning Japanese was an established English euphemism, when actually it is not. We spent alternate interviews saying, yes, it's about that, or no, it's not about that. That did nothing to dispel the rumors, but it made the interviews more interesting for us." Fenton added to The Guardian, "I wrote Turning Japanese in my flat, but couldn't get the chorus right. One night I woke up at 4 a.m. with the words, 'Turning Japanese, I think I'm turning Japanese' in my head. I wrote them down, then fell asleep, and the lines still worked for me the following day. I was interested in Japanese culture, and we had a song called Letter from Hero, named after a photographer we met in Japan." He added how the group's drummer didn't like the song initially, and how they started with a South Asian sounding riff, which he claimed was commonplace at that point in music, citing Carl Douglas' song Kung Fu Fighting. Fenton added, "John Peel played the single, then David Lee Travis started playing it on the Radio 1 breakfast show, and then one day I woke up with my radio alarm playing my song. We were #1 in Australia and then had a bigger US hit than the Jam." As for what the song actually means, Fenton added, "It's about a guy in his room staring at a photo of his ex, feeling like he's going crazy. He lost his head when she went away. He sits there day in and day out. The room turns into a cell, and he's changing too. That's why he's turning Japanese." The Japanese reference, he insisted, could have been about any nationality. It was just about feeling like an outsider, like you're losing yourself. Now, some radio stations, specifically one in San Francisco, refused to play an ad for the album, citing Turning Japanese as being inappropriate. There was one interview that Bazalgette gave where he revealed that the song actually offended the Asian communities in both Britain and America. Apart from Turning Japanese, the band also had other songs pointing to the land of the rising sun, with the track I previously mentioned, Letter from Hero, and the hauntingly 60-second interval, which could have been about Hiroshima or Nagasaki towards the end of World War II. Whatever the lyrics meant in Turning Japanese, the public was absolutely hooked. It ended up being a massive international hit. It soared to #3 in the UK. It hit #1 in Australia, staying there for 2 weeks. And it even climbed to #36 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Just like that, the Vapors were bona fide pop stars. They made those iconic appearances on BBC's Top of the Pops, their faces suddenly familiar to millions, and their music video, with its cool new wave look, got heavy airplay on the then booming MTV, pushing the song even further in America. Now, it was actually one of the first 200 videos played on MTV, since the network was pretty new at the time. They were touring like crazy, living the dream, and it really seemed like the world was at their feet. Their debut album, Nuclear Days, is a really strong collection of power pop and new wave tunes. It showcased Fenton's talent for sharp, observant lyrics and the band's tight musicianship. The band's sound has this edgy, anxious energy, and Fenton's lyrics often touched on paranoia, Cold War jitters, and the stress of modern life, all wrapped up in catchy, danceable songs. Nuclear Days was also received quite well from critics. Tracks like News at 10 and Waiting for the Weekend were released as follow-up singles to Turning Japanese. News at 10 was the only other single from the album that charted, as it peaked at the UK at #44. As for whether they considered themselves new wave, Bazalgette told an interviewer, "Our desire not to be called new wave comes from a lot of things. We wouldn't call ourselves anything. To be labeled makes things seem predictable." Their debut album ended up peaking at #62 on the US charts and #44 in the UK. By 1981, the Vapors released their second album, Magnets. This one was more ambitious and arguably a bit darker, and showed the band growing musically and willing to tackle more complex themes. The cover was designed by Martin Handford, later famous for the Where's Wally books. It depicts an assassination scene close up, but from a distance it looks like a human eye. Songs like Spiders and Jimmy Jones continued to show off their songwriting chops, and despite being a solid record, Magnets just didn't take off commercially. The incredible momentum from Turning Japanese was definitely fading. Jimmy Jones was the group's final song of their career to chart in the UK and America. It charted number 44 in the UK and number 39 in the States on the mainstream rock tracks chart.
Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, and he's so proud.
Their second album, meanwhile, didn't even chart in the UK, while it did chart in the US at number 109. So you may be asking what went wrong? Well, a few things. The music scene was changing as it always does. Label politics played a big part. Their original label, United Artists, got bought up by EMI. According to the band, the folks at EMI who inherited them were far more interested in acts like Duran Duran and Kate Bush, and the Vapors, well, felt pretty unsupported. Also, their original managers, Foxton and Weller, had also stepped back because the Jam's own massive success needed all their attention. This left the Vapors without their initial champions to guide them. Plus, the pressure to follow up a hit as huge as Turning Japanese was immense, and when their later singles didn't reach those same heights, it of course took a toll on the band. Fenton told Right Why UK, that was the start, and there was a week when we were at number 3 and the Jam were at number 1 with Going Underground. So it started to tell. Bruce and John realized they might be on a European tour with the Jam, so couldn't be on an American tour with us. It got too awkward. John held his hand up and said, sorry, it doesn't work anymore. So within a few weeks of that hit, we'd lost our record company and management. When the group went in to talk to their A&R man when they released their single News at 10, the A&R guy had no clue that a single had even been issued. Now, News at 10 charting at number 44 was enough to automatically get a spot on Top of the Pops, but there was a BBC strike and the show was cancelled at the time. Fenton added, next time we made it on was almost a year later with Jimmy Jones, by which time we'd lost momentum. Fenton added that the name News at 10 was the same name as a program on BBC's competitor ITV, and that even if Top of the Pops was not on strike, they likely wouldn't have aired the song. Even though they had 2 well-respected albums and a bunch of strong singles, the Vapors got increasingly, and you could say unfairly, slapped with the one-hit wonder label. Turning Japanese was just so distinctive, so everywhere, that it completely overshadowed the rest of their music in the public's mind. That's a heavy take for any band and often downplays their wider artistic achievements. But by 1982, the pressures had really piled on and their initial whirlwind of success had fizzled out. The Vapors, who had burned so brightly and so quickly, decided to call it a day. And there was no big public drama or messy breakups reported, just a quiet agreement that this part of their journey was over. The band had, for a short, glorious time, turned the world Japanese, simply vanished from the charts and the public eye. Turning Japanese, though, refused to go away, became a true cultural touchstone of the 80s, a permanent fixture of the era soundtrack. Its inclusion in popular movies like 16 Candles and Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion kept it alive, introducing it to new generations long after the band had split. It was also issued on the video games Rock Band, as well as on the Guitar Hero franchises too. A cover of the song was even recorded by American singer-songwriter Liz Phair. The song was also featured on the soundtrack for the 1997 movie Beverly Hills Ninja. David Fenton, the band's frontman and main songwriter, made a pretty big shift. He started to specialize in music industry law, a field where his first-hand experience definitely gave him a unique perspective. For many years, starting in 1999, he worked as an in-house solicitor for the Musicians Union in London, helping other artists navigate the tricky bits of the business. Ed Bazalgette, the band's lead guitarist, also took a new creative direction, this time stepping behind the camera. He became a really successful television director. His impressive list of credits include popular BBC shows like Doctor Who. In fact, he directed 2 episodes in 2015, EastEnders, plus documentaries. He's built a versatile and accomplished career in a different part of the entertainment world. He even directed a documentary about his great-great-grandfather, Sir Joseph Bazalgette, the famous 19th century civil engineer who designed London's sewer system. Original drummer Howard Smith reportedly ran an independent record shop called People's Records in their hometown of Guildford for many years and spent time with his family. As for bassist Steve Smith, he stayed involved in the music scene. In the years since, a cult following has grown for their albums and also grew with fans appreciating that there was more to them than just their famous single. For over 3 decades, it really seemed like the Vapors were a closed chapter in music history, a vibrant one, but definitely closed. The band attempted to reunite in 2001, but Ed was too busy on assignment for his television job. Then in 2016, something totally unexpected happened. The Vapors reunited. It all started in April of 2016 when 3 of the 4 members got on stage together at the Half Moon in Putney, and they played Turning Japanese with a guest drummer. This little appearance fueled a lot of rumors, and by October and November of that year, a proper reunion tour was on. Original members were backed by new drummer Michael Bowes, as Howard Smith was busy with family. The comeback shows included a sold-out gig at London's Dingwalls, and they were met with huge enthusiasm. Fans who loved their music for decades and probably never thought they'd see them live flocked to gigs. Reviews raved about the band's energy and how tight they sounded, and the nostalgic yet fresh vibe of their classic songs. And they weren't just playing Turning Japanese, as their setlist dug deep into their 2 albums, showing off the breadth of their material and thrilling longtime fans. Now, this wasn't just a quick nostalgia trip either. The reunited Vapors have actually started writing and performing new songs. This eventually led to the 2020 release of Together, their first new album in nearly 40 years. And the story doesn't stop there. In February of this year, the Vapors released their 4th studio album, Wasp in a Jar. Early reviews suggest it's a return to their more punky energy, with themes that touch on both the past and present worries. The band themselves say it captures a bottled up angst. Now, when people ask if the song Turning Japanese has become a type of albatross, Fenton has responded telling The Guardian, "I say no, I'm pleased it happened to us. I'd rather be a one-hit wonder than a no-hit wonder." So let me know your thoughts on today's video, guys. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section, and we'll see you again in Rock Culture Stories. Take care.